Hi, and welcome to the Sony Pro Sessions. My name is Jin, and I'm a solution specialist at Sony Professional Europe. Welcome, and I'm glad that you join us today. But before we start, I would like to point out that we have prepared a handout for you that you can find in the download area. And also, this is an interactive session, so if you have any questions, please write them into the question box, and we will try to pick them up at the end of the show. And also, after the session, it would be great if you could take 2 minutes to fill in our questionnaire, because we would like to improve our sessions, or further sessions, and also to align to your demands. Today's session is about color matching of camcorders, and for this I would like to introduce you to our guest.
Hello, my name is Uli Mors. I'm cameraman DOP editor in Germany, and just one hint. We're doing this via GoToWebinar, and this GoToWebinar, as we learned, is not a video streaming platform, and we probably have some transferring issues. This is the reason why we also record it in HD, and as far as I understand, everyone can have the link to the HD recording later, or we will show it to you. So don't mind the quality of the stream, okay?
Okay, thank you, Uli. So as we said, today's session will be about color matching. But first question is, why do we need to do color matching? So,
well, you know, in the past, we always used a lot of different cameras. For example, everyone knows me for the FS7 and the FS7 book, etc. And of course, I don't only use an FS7. And for example, if you take a second camera, like, for example, today an FX6, FX6 has a Cinetone, FS7 doesn't, and if you match a PDW 700 to it, perhaps, or let's say an action cam, usually every camera puts out different colors, and some of the cameras have possibilities to match them with the internal parameters. And so, for example, if you take an interview and have 2 different cameras, it's really annoying that you have 2 different pictures with a reddish face and a magenta face and a, I don't know, pink face. And so it's important to match cameras. Actually, if you have a live show, for example, you have to do it as well, especially if you have different camera models. Yeah.
Okay. So today we will match the cameras of our cinema line. So we have the FX3, we have the FX6, and we have the FX9. We will align them, and also in the background you can see our flagship Venice, which has the S709 lookup table. And in a minute, I would like to show you what are the differences between those curves and characteristics. So you can see the blue line remarks the Rec 709 classic curve. And then we have the S709 of the Venice, which has a really wide range of dynamic. And then in between, there is the S-Cinetone. So why do we have S-Cinetone? The reason is recently, or since the usage of cinema optics and like the usage of like DSLRs and DSLR optics, large frame sensors, more and more demand of like cinema look is in the market. So therefore, we have created this S-Cinetone, and that's the white paper that you can download and to read the details about it. Today, we will match the cameras as S-Cinetone, and you might be asking, why do we need a matching when a cinema line all have like the S-Cinetone available already? The reason is each camcorder has its own characteristics, and the reason for that is that each component in the camcorder can be a little bit different. And also we are using different sensors between FX9, for instance. The FX9 has 20 megapixels, where the FX6 and FX3 has got 10 megapixels. And also in regards of hardware platform, the FX3 is also a little bit different, because this is also capable to shoot pictures, still pictures, and therefore the characteristics is also a little bit different. So therefore, to match all the 3 cameras, we have prepared the setup, and over there you can see a test chart, and we have a nice cook today for us. Hi, this is Jakob. And yeah, and we also use some tools for it. And for the tools, Uli, maybe you can explain a little bit to us.
Perhaps we start with the light, because we wanted to avoid LED light in this setup. Of course, we wanted to show daylight, real daylight outside, but it's cloudy, it's rainy, so we went into the studio, of course, to have a consistent light. And we didn't want to use LED light sources. As you know, LED light sources don't have a continuous spectrum. So we went full tungsten. This is, I think it's years away here. I think I didn't do it for years, but we placed a lot of real bright tungsten lights, hot tungsten lights in the setup. So we have some ARRI 1 case and some 600 watt lights into the set. So actually we don't grade, or we don't want to match against LED lights, we want to match for the cameras. That's the reason why we have these tungsten lights here. And just to give you an impression of the light spectrum, I will measure with the C700 one of the lights just to see what spectrum this is putting out. Just a moment, give me a second. Probably you can see that. This is our light. So absolute continuous light, so we're not matching against the light. So I think we can start with it, but we have to explain the measurement tools that we have. So I have to go back to my station. Okay, I think first of all we should do a white balance, I think.
Yeah, so first we will do a white balance. So you can see this color on the LCD of the FX3 currently doesn't look that nice. So on purpose I have shifted it a little bit. But now I will zoom into the gray chart, and then we will do a white balance setting. So I go here and push on set, and then I will take this. Now you can see it's exactly 3000 Kelvin, and this is what we have here. So now going back out of the menu, and now I zoom out a little bit so we can see the whole color chart like this.
Okay, good. I think this is the basic, and really some camera people forget to do it. If you start matching cameras, if you want to do the same picture, of course everyone has to do the same white balance. It doesn't help if you simply put presets inside. Well, in general, presets should match, but if you have some experience, you will see that presets are a little bit different from camera to camera, and you never know what settings are behind the presets or behind a dedicated setting. So to explain our measurement tools today, we have a waveform monitor and a vector scope. At the moment we have a view of the vector scope. I want to give you the reason why, because these are quite measurement tools. If you want to judge a color, you can do it by eye, but probably you never match by eye. So what we have is a vector scope that shows us the vector position of a color and the saturation. And I think perhaps we can show some colors with our cook, with Jakob.
Okay.
Perhaps you can move the camera to its chest. And of course we have some colors in the background, so it's a little bit difficult. So and we'll make this closer so that we see its chest on the screen as well. And well, there's some, perhaps as you see, some parts are going into the orange, perhaps the background in the scene. And Jakob, do you have a red apple or red pepper for us? And can you show it in the camera? Yes. This vector scope is already very saturated. There's a two times magnification of the values, and as you see, the red pepper drives the signal into the red, of course, so we can judge this color. But as you see, it's not only one color point, it's a complete line, so there are different shades of red in this pepper. Probably, you know, very saturated and very low saturated. The less saturated the color is, the more the signal goes into the middle, and the more saturated the color is, the more the line goes outside. Do we have a different color? I don't know, something yellow? I see that you have a lot of yellow things there. Yeah, and you see the 2 times magnification. I can even take down the magnification if you like. And you see the big signal part going into yellow. And perhaps we have something green, so we can see the green pepper perhaps also. And you see, I made a magnification again, and you see, oh wow, this pepper has a lot of, you know, yellowish parts, but some cyan parts perhaps already, and some green inside as well. The problem with peppers is that usually we don't have so many peppers and so many fruits that only give one color that we can compare them. And this is when charts come into play. I know that a lot of people don't like charts and say, oh, you're managing everything by charts. But I think it's the best way to compare colors straight and direct. And one of the best ways to have all the colors of a color wheel with all shades of red going into magenta, magenta going into reds and blues, etc., is to have one chart for each color. So we need all colors of the world, and the company DSC Labs produces a chart for centuries, I guess. It's called Chroma du Monde, French word for colors of the world. And this is the chart on camera 1 that you already see. And as we see, it starts on the top with something red, goes to the right into magenta, and perhaps we prove that the vector scope sees these colors as well. So for example, if I just hide, for example, the red and magenta part of it, Jin, can you say it? Yeah, do we see it? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Or the yellow parts of it, or the greenish parts of it. So every chip gives one part on the vectorscope. This chart is especially made for vectorscopes, and therefore unfortunately it's a bit expensive, but it's the absolute proof because all these chips are photometrically printed. There are versions of it, dozens of versions, but this is one single version. It's a little bit outdated, I'm sorry, but it still works for a comparison of cameras so far. We also have a waveform monitor. But we use the waveform monitor at the moment mostly for the same exposure because we want to have all cameras at the same level and on the same gamma curve, so the shades of gray should be the same, of course, for camera matching. And this is why we use the waveform monitor and the vectorscope for the colors. Okay, I'm going back, so you can go to the FX3 already.
Yep. So to start the matching, we have done a white balance adjustment already, which is the base. And the thing is that the FX3 is the smallest camcorder we have, and therefore it's also the one that has the least adjustment possibilities. So therefore we use the FX3 and then we will align the other camcorders towards it. And for that we have dedicated menu points that I will show you in detail right now. Okay, so I would say let's move the FX3. I forgot. We first take a screenshot. Yeah. We take a screenshot of the chart and the data we have received. And this we will use as a base to line the other camcorders. So maybe you can explain a little bit more about this in detail, Uli.
If you have a waveform monitor and a vectorscope, in general you can take any waveform or vectorscope. You can take it from the Atomos monitors or external monitors with waveform and vectorscope, of course. But the larger the screen is and the better the resolution of it is, the better the results are. And we're using a software, so we feed the signal into the software and we can make a screenshot of it and use it as an overlay.
Sorry, can you show us the screenshot?
Okay.
As a picture.
So if I loaded already something in, but I can use a screenshot, and I just made a screenshot of this. And if we make an overlay with it, I can select it and make an overlay, and you see the screenshots, or the actual screenshot is this with the yellow color. So I can just move between green and yellow. Yellow is the taken screenshot of the FX3, so we can match it. And just one hint for everyone that cannot afford expensive measurement tools. In the past, I did this with a big waveform on the screen and some foil, with some clear foil that we taped to the screen and made some adding points on it. Be careful not to paint on the screen itself, just for having the overlay. So you can even use simple
Okay.
solutions for this.
So let's start then.
We have made the screenshot.
Yeah.
We don't need the FX3 anymore, right?
Yeah, right.
So we take this away.
Take this away.
I will take it for you, and we place
Thank
it.
you. And
Replace
we
it
with the FX6.
Yes. Of course, we have to do a white balance, but we shorten this up a little bit because we already made the white balance. That's quite easy. So let's take also the screen shots. Yeah, this works. This works as well. Okay, first of all, we need the different signal for it. So this is on the screen as in green, you see the actual live picture. And because Jin has a white shirt, unfortunately he reflects a little bit into the chart because we're not in a, how do you say, we're not in a scientific room.
In a laboratory.
We are working for you for the workshop. So if you want to do it the same way, you must take care that no reflections run into the signal. Okay, first of all, right brightness.
Yes, so maybe you can say a little bit about it. So when I change it like this.
So we decided to go with the gray to 45%. Yeah, that's the right position. And S-Log is less contrasty as Rec 709. So the highlights, the white chips in the picture that you can see here on the waveform monitor are just touching 80%. And I think it's a good idea to stay at 80% with S-Cinetone, because if you go higher, the picture starts to desaturate. That's the nice thing of S-Cinetone, but we have to be careful. So we are staying a little bit, let's say, underexposed. We stay with 80% in the brights, because this is what we have done with the FX3 as well. I make a comparison. Oh, I see the FX3 was a little bit higher, or I just loaded in, or I made the wrong comparison. This is the right comparison. Yeah, you can even go a little bit higher. Can you open the iris?
It is already open.
Oh, no, not anymore.
It is already open. So
I think we can live with that. That's fine.
So please don't wonder. So I just switched to the display output for you that we can see the menu of the camcorder. So we are in the FX6 now. And in the paint menu, we have matrix and multi-matrix. And with those both menus, we can adjust the colors. So you can see we have user matrix level and user matrix phase. With the level, we can change the amplitudes, and with the phase, we can change the position of the whole formation. And then you can see we have user matrix groups of colors that we can change. So basically, Uli, what do you think? Why do we have matrix and multi-matrix?
I think the normal matrix is inherited by the analog big camcorders when everything was analog, and because this is a kind of three-dimensional color model in the camera, and if you move one of the vectors, like the R minus B, so this is a combination of the sensor colors, if you pull or push one of these vectors, you are moving different things at the same time. For example, you can do it. And this is quite scientific. So this was a thing that picture engineers did in the past, and they know exactly what they're doing. It's possible to learn it, but you have really to see what the characteristics of these parameters are, because you're moving vectors of a three-dimensional thing, of a three-dimensional cube, let's say.
So now I'm changing the phase, so you can see the whole formation is now moving around.
Yeah.
Right. And then when I go back to 0, and then I go back to level, and now you can see I changed the amplitudes.
Yeah. It's like saturation for the whole picture, right?
Okay, so let's start matching, I would say.
Yeah.
And
just a moment. We didn't explain the multi-matrix yet.
Yeah, sure. Sorry.
Because the standard matrix is the, let's say, scientific inherited way of painting the camera. But since cameras are digital and have so much processing power, it's now possible to tune every single chip of this chart. It's 24, I think 24 colors. Each within its color tone and its saturation, so the hue and the saturation. And this is something I can understand better.
So let's see when I do this with blue, you can see how I'm changing just the smaller part of groups.
Yeah. Perhaps I make it big.
Yeah.
Just that everyone can see this a little bit better.
Yeah. So you can see I'm changing blue, and these 3 dots, maybe you can show with the mouse.
Yeah.
You can see how they change if I play with the values.
Yeah.
So now I'm going back to 0.
Yeah. And perhaps we take out the menu display so that we only see the colors and not your output anymore.
Yep. So.
And I will as well overlay the old colors.
And now
let's have a look on this, because if you see the red channel and the skin tone line,
you can see,
it's quite similar. So, for example, this flesh tone line with different colors going into red, that's nearly the same. So it's not about matching to the vector scope, but it's matching to the FX3. So don't worry, especially the engineers of you, please don't blame us for this. We just want to compare one camera against the FX3. So, and I see some colors, of course, do not match.
Yeah, but I would like to emphasize that you can see that the skin tones, especially like red and magenta, they are matched already quite good. And there you can see that this S-cinetone behavior is already matching from factory side.
Okay, good.
So let's start and match the other colors. So first, I take the R-G group. Okay, we can take that and leave it like this. And then I take the next group. You can see. Keep that.
Yeah. So what is the parameter called that you're moving at the moment?
So the last one was B-G. So basically, this is what I can do in the user matrix. So there's no optimum found there. So now I switch to multi-matrix, and then I will start to touch upon each of the smaller groups or more exact groups. So where should I start, Uli?
I think red is okay, but perhaps we go into the magenta direction.
Yep.
So unfortunately in the camera there are no words for the in-betweens. It's called red minus, magenta plus or something like that. And perhaps you grab one of them and show us what happens.
So I will take magenta plus. I'm now. Okay, this is this group. So you can see I'm moving magenta plus, and now okay, I have changed the hue, where you can see that I changed the direction, and when I go like plus, I move it clockwise, and if I go minus, then I go counterclockwise, as you can see.
And it's moving not only one chip, it always draws the neighbors with it sometimes, right? So it's not, sometimes it's only matching, depending on the light probably, really taking one chip and move it. But in many cases, you take the neighbor, let's say the left neighbor and the right neighbor, and while you move it, you draw them with you.
Yeah.
So now it's all about compromise, right?
Yeah. Now I went to magenta, and now I'm playing with the hue. You can see. Okay.
Yeah. A little bit more. Yeah.
That looks good. And now I will
desaturate it.
Desaturate like this.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you can see.
And now we have the 5 chips. Yeah, that's great.
Now it's matching quite well, I think.
Good. Can you take the next one?
Yeah, so I will take the next one, which is magenta. This was no red.
I'm
blue
not sure.
plus.
Yeah.
Blue plus. So where are we here? Ah, it's that one.
Perhaps you can see the menu as well on your screen, because now this is plus and a U, so you're using B plus, so it's just a blue part, and you're using U set and saturation, so this is U tuning it counterwise or clockwise or counterclockwise. Okay.
And I have taken less hue here. So yeah, maybe to shorten up. I mean, we have shown it for a few dots already, and maybe to shorten this up, we have done a matching to the FX6 just right before we started the session. So maybe we can play back the adjustments of the other
because
parts.
Otherwise it will be really boring. I think it's boring already, but I think it's roughly 10 minutes that we did roughly 2 hours ago. 10 minutes into, I don't know, 20 or 30 seconds or something like that. Mark, hit play. Okay, there you can see where we move each chip and have the yellow overlay and try to match it. And I think it's worth saying we're matching only to one color temperature and we're matching to one exposure. So all the picture engineers be polite with us because we're doing this for one single light and for one exposure. Of course, a cinetone has a behavior that if you overexpose the picture, the colors will change, they will desaturate. So you have to keep this in mind. And you also have to keep in mind if you have completely different color temperatures, like going outside, there should be a setting for this as well. But we wanted to offer a setting for 4,300 Kelvin, but we decided to go with a continuous light source in the studio. Right. Okay, so this was the final matching of the FX6, and this was not bad.
Yeah, so I have now, when we finalized the settings, I have saved the settings into the old file, and now I have just reloaded the old file to get back all the settings. So the picture that you can see now on the vector scope is, this is the settings that we have done 2 hours ago. And as you can see, most of the dots are now aligned to the FX3 characteristic. You can do it more detailed. This is roughly 10 minutes of work. I think 10-15 minutes. If you really spend more time in it and use both matrices, it's probably even better. But I think for matching two different, not completely different, but a little bit different looks, or even two different cameras, because you can, of course, match an FX6 to another camera with this. I think it's not bad at all. So this was FX6 for the beginning, and we will make some comparison pictures with Jakob soon. Yep. So I would say let's move on to the FX9. Yeah, absolutely. Which we have done also. Where did you put this one? I think there. Right? Sorry? Ah, yeah, we have some questions already. Oh, do we have questions already? Okay, let's ask the questions. Sebastian.
So one question was, do the cameras we are using, so the 3, 6 and the 9, have the same lenses or?
Yes, sorry to mention this. Yes, of course, we use the kit lens as they are the most broad used lenses with those models. So we have the SELP 28135G, which is the kit lens of FX6 and FX9. Or not kit lens of the FX6, but the kit lens of the FX9. So let me quickly move the FX9 to the position.
Do we have a different question in the time, Tim? Yes. One step before and front? Yeah.
Oops. Second question, or another one is, you made a white balance on 3,000, 3,200 Kelvin, but if you are the proper light setter, do you need to do a white balance, or can you just dial in the white balance number into the cameras?
I think in the worst case, I would always go preset. So for example, if we have some shoulder mount cameras and some whatever. I think the manufacturers did a good job on programming preset white balances, but my experience, and I think many camera people can copy that, even if you go preset, the cameras sometimes behave a little bit different. I think it's not a problem if you shoot and roughly match it, but I think for scientific matching, like we are doing this here with color charts, etc., it's a good idea to make a manual setting. And don't forget, all the lights that we're using, even the most expensive ones that we're using for lighting us, this is LED, by the way, in the background, even the most expensive ones don't match the color temperature. If you read the color temperature in the camera, for example, if you tune it in, let's say, to 4,500 or whatever, it's not scientific. This is something I really learned, especially at the WDR, when there were comparisons between color temperatures. And it's just a rough statement in the camera saying, oh, I'm roughly 3,200 if you do a white balance. Don't rely on these numbers. If you have the vector scope, you can see that the white balance on a gray chart produces a white dot in the middle of the vector scope. Or you take histograms, red, green, and blue, and they must have the same shape. Or you take a waveform monitor, red, green, blue, and it must be on the same level. It's a good idea to make a white balance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. FX9.
So the FX9 is set up.
Yeah.
And I think it is already set up.
Yeah.
So
this is FX9.
you can see it's matching already quite well,
yeah,
which we have done also. Anyway, I think it's interesting to see how we came to that point. So again, in a fast-forward motion recording, I think we can play back the FX9 setting, the matching.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Mark, can you play the second FX9 video? Yeah, you see.
So you can see how we did the matching there. Oh, this is really quite fast. Indeed.
Be careful. Many engineers told us that especially taking green and cyan into big plus values means introducing gain. And gain can introduce noise. Of course, these cameras are quite noise-free, so I hope that even pushing colors a little bit more doesn't ruin your picture. But you should have this in mind and have a comparison. Take an HD monitor, look on the screen, or take a 4K. And see what happens to the picture. Just matching the values should always be copied by having a look on the picture itself. So we could...
Yeah, and the nice thing is you can also save all your settings. So if you need to do it once, really precisely, and then you are sure that for this light condition, all the values are matching. So you can create your all files with dedicated names and say like, okay, this is indoor 3,200 or whatever, or like 2,900, and then you can give it a name, and then you can always just load your all files, and then you have your presets.
Yeah, I think it's also a good idea to have a look on the waveform monitor that the colored chips, the black, gray, and whites, the shadings do match as well, because if you pull the gammas in a post-production, for example, then the colors change in saturation as well. So everything depends on each other, and it's always a compromise doing this. Okay, we can place the cameras to Jakob, just to give a very short comparison. Again, you can do it more precise than we did it, just fast. And Jakob, you can still chop something. I guess you have to make our lunch now. And I hope exposure is quite right. Otherwise, we have to tune it a little bit and just give us a very short comparison. So this is picture number 1. This is FX3. Could be perhaps a little bit more saturated. We should control this a second time. This is FX6. Do we have the FX9 already as well?
Yes.
This is FX9. Perhaps it's a bit more saturated. So this would be great to have a second try on the matching and see and compare these pictures against each other again. But in general, this should work. So I switch between these, and I can take away the colors. Or Mark, you can even take the original And that's just a short way how we did that. Okay, Sebastian, are there some more questions that we can throw in?
Yes, but you need to repeat because I don't have an answer.
Yeah, I can repeat them. Just a moment.
So there was a question, what instrument have you used at the beginning to show the color spectrum?
Yeah, one of the... question repeat. The question was what instrument I used in the beginning. This is a Sekonic C700. I know there are different models, C700 and C800. And there are also other vendors making color meters. And color meters are quite expensive, unfortunately. But I see this as a really great tool if you compare light sources or compare Kelvin values, color correction values. For example, this light meter or color meter can tell you if the Kelvin, if you need to compensate for some Kelvin shifts, or can tell you what light filters you need, color gels. So for example, if I have an LED source, light source, and I put some gels in front of it, or I tune some colors, I can really check if the color is the same. For example, these LED lights that we have in the background have been measured, and they show on the screen, they say something like 3000 Kelvin, but we had to tune it a little bit to match them against the tungsten lights. And this is possible, Sekonic and some other vendors, C700 in this case. Yeah.
What kind of software are you using for the matching?
I thought the software for the matching, I wanted to keep this as a secret, but this is Scopebox from Divergent Media, runs on, I think, PC and Mac, I'm not sure. And you simply need any simple hardware to throw the signal into the computer, and then you can open a screen. It's not a scientific tool. The resolution could be better, but on the other hand, it's a quite cheap tool. It's roughly, I think, $100 or something like that, and is quite versatile. So we used it for matching here, for waveform, and for the overlay. Because if you want to do it in a professional manner, you really have to spend a lot of money, probably even a few thousand euros for measuring tools from Tektronix and others. Can be expensive. Something more?
Do you have to match colors between the cameras every time you change exposure or color temperature?
Oh.
Or is there an easy way to make a match?
I think the best way is to have 3 matches in hand. So if you, for example, we did tungsten. To be honest, where do we find tungsten anymore? So where do we find 3200 Kelvin? It's really rare that you find bulbs with really tungsten light inside. I think either it's LED light changing from, I don't know, 3000 to 10,000 Kelvin, or you're outside with cloudy condition with continuous light source, or you are in bright sunlight. And I would think the perfect match would be to have all 3 of them prepared. So you have something for tungsten, 3000 something. You have something for mixed light, like 4300 Kelvin, and perhaps something for sunlight. And then you're roughly in the ballpark. I think, and we really, it didn't work. We tried to produce a daylight setting with this, with LED light, and it was a mess. So it's a good idea to have some higher color correction light, new color correction, white balances like 4000 or 5000 Kelvin for everyday shoot. But we couldn't manage it here. You have to do it outside, or I don't know, in a safe space also outside, or if it's not raining. Okay. Yes. Okay. Now you should answer something. Okay.
Yeah, I think we have also prepared another chart or a picture,
yeah, that's right.
basically, which shows the test chart.
Give me a
all
second.
at once. So
Give
just taking out this picture for you now, and we have overlaid all the 3 matched camcorders to each other.
Okay, the outer part was a screen capture. Again, this was 10 minutes as we just showed, so you can even make it better, but this was a 10-minute try. So we have outside is the FX3. The next step is FX6. The next step is FX9. And there are some colors I know For example, this blue, probably we have to make some work on this, but this is FX3, so the reference, our reference for today, is this blue, and we didn't match it with the FX6 very perfect, so probably we have to rework on that. But if I see skin tones, they're quite similar. If you see all the skin tones, yellow parts are quite similar. There are some different shades or some different brightnesses in the colors that you can not touch perfectly.
Yeah.
But I think for a 10-minute work on each camera, this is quite impressive.
Yeah, and also I think we also did a test with S-Log3, right?
Yeah,
so,
and this was very interesting. So S-Log3 is this picture. So you see the pure S-Log3 without any post-production, without any lookup table, nothing, pure exposed S-Log. Again, FX3, FX6, FX9 from outside to inside. And then we simply put one lookup table. It's the S709 lookup table. It's kind of a cinetone on all of it. So there's no matching in between each chip or each recording. It's just the lookup table on top of S-Log. There are some differences, like in the red, and because this looks a little bit orange to me.
And here you can see the difference between FX3 and the FX6 and FX9, which goes quite much along. Yeah. And there you can see the different characteristic of the FX3 due to the fact that it is also it's also capable to take still pictures, and for this it has just a little bit different characteristics.
And to be honest, if you start working on S-Log and you put a lookup table on it, so this is just the whole work, because many people are sometimes crazy about post-production. They say, oh, I have to go into grading. I say, shoot S-Log. You have to know how to shoot S-Log, you must know how to expose it, and then you put the lookup table on top of it, and to 80%, 90%, the grading could be done as at least to have a watchable picture. And if you want to tune the colors even a little bit more, it's easy to do it in the post-production. If you have to tune the red a little bit or the yellow a little bit, it's no problem at all. But to be honest, if you don't have a post-production behind, if you don't want to go with lookup tables and you only have to see the S-cinetone matching, so this is S-cinetone, this is in-camera grading, let's call it this way, and this is baked in look for, let's say, interviews, or to be, we have been very lazy because this camera has not been matched.
Okay, we have received another question, Sebastian. So,
yes. Do you recommend to match the color between two cameras of the same model, so let's say two FX6, for example, before starting shooting?
So the question is if we should match and align two different cameras of the same model, so like two FX6s, for instance.
You remember when we prepared this session, we did exactly this test. We took two FX6 with different serial numbers and put it on the chart and loaded in the matching that we did and had a look if they match or if they don't match. The result was quite positive, but on the other hand, when we did the firmware update, there was something saying like, some improvements on white balance. I could imagine that it's a good idea to have two cameras of the same kind and two firmwares of the same kind to be quite sure. But you said there are some variations on the sensors.
It could happen that you find some variations between firmwares. So it's always good to have the same level of firmware on the same cameras that you have. But otherwise, let's say the difference between two serial numbers, I would say, is very, very low. But to be perfect, I mean, of course, it's always good to have a look and a check if everything is going well.
Yeah.
I mean, anyway, you should check your camcorders before you start a production where everything is fixed. And so
I must admit, with the experience of FS7 and a lot of workshops I did with FS7 and for FS7 users, I would be quite confident. So I would say, okay, we're doing an interview with 3 cameras or multi-camera shoot, perhaps not the most important camera shoot of the world, but I would take 3 cameras, I would place them each beneath each other with the same firmware, and I would take the same white balance, and I would be quite confident that the same settings work. perhaps there are some variation, but I think I would go with it. Okay.
Do we have another question?
Questions?
Another one is, one customer, he has an A7 S3 and an FX6. So what is the, let's say, cheapest or quickest way to match these two?
I must admit, S-Log. I'm an S-Log fan anyway, as you perhaps know. So which camera I'm on? This one? This one? There, okay. I think the cheapest way would be good to go S-Log, but S-Log has its, how do you say, pitfalls? Yeah, so it can be dangerous if you don't know exactly how to work with S-Log. But as I saw, S-Log is really on the same level and in the same ballpark. Going as Cinetone, I would say it would be nice if you have a chart and you can even rent it. So go to your rental house. Usually the big rental houses, the film rental houses, usually have these charts. If they don't have it, they should buy one. And you just borrow it for one day or do it there. Sometimes they can help you with this. And I think, as we saw, skin tones, skin line is nearly the same in Cinetone with, I would say, with all three cameras.
Yeah. It's just more the blue area or the green area.
And in the worst case, worst case, if you cannot afford to do it, I would go outside with the same light conditioner and take some fresh green. Green is usually, if you take grass green, it's yellow green, and compare it on the screen and try to, match it by eye. This would be better than nothing. Perhaps you also see if you put both clips, FX6 and Alpha, into Premiere or into Resolve, and you compare it and you see, oh, I have to tune the red a little, no, red not, but the yellow a little bit or the blue a bit. You can think complementary to this and go into the FX6 settings and try to, move this, but without the chart, it's always a little bit of danger. Yeah. Okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. Something more?
Yep.
Cool.
Also? Oh, yeah.
At the vector scope, the gain, is it 2 times?
Yes. Yeah. This chart where you simply cannot read, vielleicht kannst du noch mal where you simply cannot read the written lines anymore, is made for, it's made for 2 times magnification. This has some scientific reasons because it's not possible to print saturated colors for the vector scope that the camera simply films, because then you would have an extreme printed color, and of course this is reflective colors only, so you cannot print colors for the vector scope. You can only produce them electronically, so in the camera, for example, with a color bar or something like that. That's the reason why DSC Labs and other companies print these charts half saturated, and for matching to the vector scope you have to put a 2 times gain, so 2 times saturation, let's say, in the picture. And not all the vector scopes can do it. And the software can do it, and some others, of course, as well. If you take, unfortunately, I don't have it on hand. If you take a Macbeth chart or what's it called, the color checker charts, they are printed quite saturated. So probably the vector scope will explode with it. And you won't find the nice graduated colors in between red, magenta, etc. So matching with the color checker charts doesn't help. So it must be something with photometrically printed colors if you want to compare it correctly on the vector scope. Okay, so something more.
Yes, the question is, if you have done your white balance profiles, can you store these on the SD card to load them into another camera, another FX6, for example?
The question we must repeat the questions.
So the question is, if we can save and store the white balance adjustments to a card and then reload it on a different camera. So you can change, you can store your file, your old file on a SD card, but it's only available within one model. So this means you can, of course, store everything on the FX9. You can make an old file, you can save it, and all the adjustments, including the matrix, and multi-matrix, will be stored onto the old file. And this you can, of course, take it and load it to a different FX9, but it's not possible to reload it, for instance, to an FX6.
Tim, can you come with the camera, please? Could you come? Don't be careful. If you look on this screen, this is the so-called user file within the camera. So you, saving user data from the user menu, and you will find one saying there, load white data. So usually with the user file, you store a white balance A and white balance B, and you can decide if you load in the user file if the white balance comes back or not. So there is a way to say, for example, for studio work, for example, for us, if we are not too lazy today, we could save user files in each camera and use these user files later with exactly the same lights, so everything is the same, and we can load in the user files with the white balance. So studio applications, live applications, shooting always on the same location could save the white balance. The other way to have the white balance, if you go into the white balance menu, you will find a Kelvin value, a balance value, that's magenta green, and some more parameters. You could write them down and try to, type them in again. It's a lot of work. I think it's easier to make a white balance, or you load the user file.
Just a hint from my side. I just checked if this is also available in the FX6. I couldn't find it, so this means this load white data is only available on the FX9.
Are you sure?
Do we have a further question?
Yeah. It's a question. So can we show the final pictures of the?
Yeah, sure, of course.
What they've done and how good they're matching right now.
Yeah.
So, you mean on the chart or on?
No, I think with the picture, right?
With the picture. Yeah. Okay.
So this is at the moment we see FX3, and Jin is still setting up. Oh, there's something. Sorry, I think I just deleted the white balance, or something happened.
No.
I don't know. Let's see number 3. So FX9 against FX3. I make a fast changeover. So it's sometimes a good idea to grab some colors and see this red people or the green or the fruits or something like that.
Let me take
his
face, and maybe I will zoom in a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's take this part. And
it's also a good idea to see shades, like the low saturated colors in the glass, or some fruits, or if you see the greenish shades in the background. And I'm not sure what happened to our FX6, because there's some blue colors. Did we change the setting just for demonstration purposes?
I don't know.
I guess so.
Maybe it's the cable.
I'm not sure. No.
No.
I think I dialed in something as we showed.
Because
something.
I don't see it here.
But I think for again 10-minute camera matching, this was quite easy. For autofocus.
Is it better or is it still?
It's better. Yeah, but
okay.
Focus is not right.
Okay, sorry.
Forgive us. Next time we will have 3 cameramen on each. No, not 3 on each camera. 1 cameraman each. Okay. Okay. I think this is a good way to show it for a moment. Autofocus doesn't work at the moment. Okay. I think we should finish it. We can produce one clip afterwards.
If we have further questions, you're welcome to send us the questions, and then also maybe you can show the chart. We have also, I think, attached some links to LinkedIn, to our social medias, to Uli, so you can send us questions, and we try to answer them. And also we have the next session on 10th of June. So you're welcome to join the next session, which is about HDR basics and on-set monitoring. So it's on 10th of June. Thank you very much for your time today, and I hope it was a little bit informative for you and useful. So thank you again, and we say bye-bye from Aarhus.
Thank you very much. That was a nice, short starting point for camera matching. Please forgive us the first 2 minutes. We are a bunch of people trying to make it happen with so many cameras, 3, 4 FX cameras in the background, 4 cameras there, and all the gear. Just forgive us for some late delay.
Also, thank you very much to all the crew behind.
Yep.
So we have Sebastian, we have Mark, we have Tim, and Andre, and
Ines making the kitchen,
and
Jakob.
of course Jakob.
Thank you very much.
So thank you very much to the whole team that made it possible today. And hopefully see you next time. Stay safe and have a good day.
Okay.
Goodbye.
Bye.